everybody. It's Allison Williams here, your law firm mentor. Law Firm Mentor is a business coaching service for solo and small law firm attorneys. We help you grow your revenues, crush chaos in business, and make more money. Elise Buie Esquire is a passionate, creative, problem-solving family law attorney who creates solutions, not obstacles. After evacuating her hometown of New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina and surviving a divorce, Elise landed in Seattle and founded her law firm. Elise's practice involves all aspects of family law, guided by a collaborative philosophy and her deep understanding of complex parenting issues. Elise opened her firm during a period of personal adversity, and now, in this period of global adversity, Elise's firm has experienced its most significant growth yet, which she attributes to primarily her driving force and mantra, "I can do it." Now, the beautiful thing about Elise, and the reason I'm so happy to have her on the podcast, is the fact that she is a former client of Law Firm Mentor. And I didn't invite her on as a former client. I actually invited her on with the expectation of talking to her about her podcast, which is dedicated to the trifecta of three of the most challenging statuses that any person can have in our life, which include being a lawyer, being a law firm owner, and being a mom. So Elise is going to talk to us about the ways in which she guides people through her process on her podcast of coming into a greater sense of appreciation for the difficulty of being all of those things at once, and the ways that she handles it, not only as an individual, but as somebody who has had a lot of traumatic experiences, a lot of very significant experiences in each of those areas of her life, all at the same time. And so normally we don't bring on successful attorneys. Of course, I want you guys to know about successful attorneys if they have services to offer you, because this podcast is really dedicated to serving the solo and small firm niche. But I wanted to bring on Elise in particular because I think that she is doing something unique and positive in the legal community that you don't see every day. And as the law firm mentor, I personally do not have children. So that is one of those three statuses that I don't bring to the table. But I tell people all the time, the evolution of your mindset is something that you require no matter what your status is. And so what Elise talks to us about that I think is particularly helpful for those of you that do have all of those statuses is how to integrate the thought work that she and I worked on together into all of the different areas of your life in a way that allows you to enjoy being a mom and being a law firm owner and being a lawyer. Now, of course, the one thing that I should put a little caveat on here is that even though we are talking about being a mom, and being a mom is different in our society than being a dad, there is a utilitarianism to understanding this perspective, as for our fathers as well. So I invite all of our audience here at Law Firm Mentor to enjoy my conversation with Elise Buie. All right, Elise Buie, welcome to the Crushing Chaos with Law Firm Mentor podcast.
Thank you so much, Allison, for having me. I love chatting with you.
Of course, and I love chatting with you, which is the reason why this show is so cool, because today I get to do something a little bit different than we normally do on the show. For those of you that have been listening to the podcast for any length of time, you know that the show is typically me or a member of our community, people that follow Law Firm Mentor or people that I've just come across who offer a service or a product that is beneficial for the solo or small law firm attorney. And Elise is somebody who I've had the pleasure of knowing for many years now. And in her journey of growing her own very successful law firm, she has been an inspiration to many, many lawyers. And so she is now doing something that I think is really cool. And it is not necessarily a service that people would go out and click add to cart to be able to work with her, but it provides such value that I just couldn't help but have her on the show. So I'm really, really excited to dive in. And Elise, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show.
Absolutely.
All right. So I know with that big wind up, you're like, what are we talking about today? Today, we're going to talk about the Maximum Mom podcast. Okay. So some of you may have heard about the platform Maximum Lawyer, but what I love about Elise is that she has created her own little subset of that platform called the Maximum Mom. And so I want to ask, for those that haven't heard about it before, Elise, what is Maximum Mom all about?
Oh, well, thanks. Maximum Mom is something that was kind of like my baby. And I went to Jim and Tyson, who are the leaders of the Maximum Lawyer Group. It's like a Facebook group, probably, I don't know, 4,000 attorneys, male, female, all owners. And I was involved in, I would do webinars or things with the Maximum Lawyer Group. And I would get all this feedback from women coming to me, asking me questions, because in my typical self, I mean, the fact that I am a mom comes out all the time. And I am a mom of 4 children, stepmom of 2. So we have this blended, Brady Bunch, 3 girls, 3 boys kind of family. And so women were reaching out to me all the time. And a lot of it was, people, and they were almost apologetic, and they would reach out to me and they would be like, I just have a question about this, or how did you handle this, or what did you do? And and I'm really upfront explaining to people what a mess I really am. So like I would, be like, oh, I have done that, like, and so then it occurred to me there was a real need, and especially during the pandemic. And so I reached out to Jim and Tyson and asked if they would be willing to allow me to host a podcast, and we named it the Maximum Mom Podcast. And the whole idea is to encompass people who are moms, lawyers, and entrepreneurs. And I mean, I think of that as a real trifecta of responsibilities.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we got started. And it's, in its infancy, but it's a lot of fun. And I think it really offers some real life, authentic, just hardcore truths about this trifecta. I sometimes think social media can make it look all, unicorns and rainbows. And I mean, I'm here to tell you the unicorns poo on the carpet and the rainbows get blurry.
So Elise, I love that you're saying this. And so first of all, as somebody who knows you, I think you are far less of a mess than you like to characterize yourself to be. But when we talk about someone being, quote, a mess, I think it really is that disconnect that you just described between this is what social media says I am. My hair's always done. My nails are always done. I have on the right outfit. It doesn't show the kid threw up on my outfit 5 minutes before I had to leave. It doesn't show that I had to be late for court because my kid was sick and, my husband left for work already. It doesn't show all of the parts of our humanity that we are supposed to suspend when we're lawyering, let alone when we're both lawyering and being the owner of a business. And so the fact that you're being authentic about that, I think really does fit a need. And I want you to talk just a little bit about your authenticity and the fact that you are willing to kind of put that messiness out there in a way that does disconnect from the public image that I'm sure we all would like to have of ourselves, of having it all dialed in.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I just have not been all dialed in. It has been, I mean, there's the whole thing of raising all these children, going through a divorce, moving, dealing with Hurricane Katrina, now dealing with the pandemic, starting a firm because I didn't have 2 cents to put together to pay for my kids to go to college. And I had to figure that out quick because I had these 4 kids, like, yo, mom, you say education's important and college is looming. So like a lot of things came together that I had to do as part of my role as a mom. And I used my role as a lawyer and then as a law firm owner to create what I wanted to create and do for my children. But I mean, to say that it was smooth sailing would be just a whole big lie. I mean, it has been bumpy, messy. I've learned along the way. I've made big mistakes on things. There's all kinds of things. I mean, and as somebody who has worked with me in a professional capacity, coaching me, I mean, all the things and all the learning, that I have needed to do and still need to do, is part of that journey. And I think it's a mistake for us to pretend that it's not a bumpy journey, because I think it really creates an ideal that is not at all real and true. It's almost like those people who are, whatever they call it, when you fix up people in a picture and you make them look perfect,
Filters. Yes, the filters.
And I mean, I don't do filters well. I'm a good Southern girl. We say what we mean what we say. We throw a little bless your heart at the end so people think you're being nice. But, like, I think for me, I can only speak for me. For me, it is just easier to be me. And that is, I mean, it's sometimes been really messy. I mean, I've had real issues with kids and, things that I've had, hard, messy mom situations and, hard, messy lawyer situations and law firm owner situations. And I think that we learn from each other. And I know for me, I have an easier time learning from somebody who at least feels that they speak from a place of authenticity, where I can feel like they understand, that it's not all unicorns. And
Yeah.
roses.
So Elise, I love that you're talking about the fact that you were coached, right? Because
Yeah.
there's one of the things that I think a lot of people shy away from is the idea of you want to get yourself under control. And you, I think, embrace in a way that is very unique the idea that I am not under control and that is okay, right? Like it isn't that my life's mission is to figure out a way to have all of my clothes neatly pressed in my home meticulously clean and my children perfectly behaved and my business running at full speed ahead. Like, but notwithstanding that, you have been able to say, when I was in a place of distress, I also wanted more for myself. I wanted more profit. I wanted more success for my team. I wanted everyone to do well. And I could create that as long as I could commit to that while also being not perfect.
Absolutely. I mean, I think coaching is, I mean, I have to say, it is like the golden rainbow in my mind of what you need. And at different times, I think you need different coaches and different styles. And there's mindset work that you can do that I think is, I mean, critical to the foundation of almost everything you're going to do. And then sometimes you might need a coach. I mean, I've worked with you, I've worked with other coaches on delegation, like helping me learn to delegate and helping me teach my team how to delegate. And I mean, I joke all the time that, I mean, I really mastered delegation on the backs of my children, because I was like, okay, I taught you how to do the laundry, so don't ever bring me your laundry again, because my whole job is to make you independent. And here you are with your pink clothes and they look cute. You're fine in school with your pink clothes. But like,
your pink used to be white clothes.
Exactly. And I mean, but I think that those are, I mean, it sounds silly, but in my world, delegation is probably one of the highest skills that I have needed to learn. And truly being a mom has helped that, because I have been able to watch. I mean, and lucky for me, I had a pilot kid. So there was some trial and error in there too, and you would see how some kids were able to take little direction and run with it. There may be more initiative. Then other kids would come back and they would need like constant direction. So I kind of learned that personality and what I needed to do to successfully delegate to that. And then I had the child who was a little more free spirited and he had his own ideas on what he was doing. So, I learned about how to deal with that, where somebody tends to think delegation means they can just go run amok.
Yeah, that's where my practice area comes in, Elise, just so you know. Those kids, those special free-spirited kids are the reason why child abuse attorneys exist.
But it's also the reason why you're crushing chaos, because you think about all that you teach us on systematizing your business. You have to have employees that are willing to follow those systems, at least until they're able to take the initiative and tell you a better system and provide you a reason for changing your system. But I mean, that's your own skill set,
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect bridge to the second, kind of piece of this, which is, as a mom, you have to balance so many things, especially a mom of a lot of children and a stepchild, two stepchildren. So you have that relationship also to nurture, right? So you're doing a lot in nurturing and creating and sustaining and evolving relationships. But what I think a lot of people miss when it comes to creating a business culture is you can't just copy and paste your home life onto your business relationship and say, well, I love you as my child and you do what I tell you to do. I'll ask that same thing of my employee. I love you because I pay you X dollars, or I love you because I show you the way to increase your career trajectory, and therefore I want you to do the same thing. And they're not the same skill, even though they draw upon some of the same emotions and some of the same analytical framework.
Oh, I mean, you have hit the nail on the head. And I know when I coached with you, you helped me so much in dealing with that dynamic in my team and helping me better understand, how to be the best employer I could be and still be authentic to my very maternal self, because there's no doubt I have this very strong maternal self, but that is a very different role as an employer versus a parent. And I think that learning, I call it like leading, managing, and holding people accountable. I mean, it is a caring role, but there is definitely what I call that whole idea of radical candor, caring personally and challenging directly, and learning that skill, because I have an easier time challenging my children directly, I have to say, naturally, than I have my employees.
Do you know why that is, Elise?
I don't.
I would posit that happens, and because I've heard that from other clients before, right? I would posit that happens because your children have an unconditional love for you, right? But when you're in a relationship with your children where there's some degree of dependence, if not financial dependence, there's emotional dependence that comes in the bonding relationship when you have your child. But when you have any other person, whether it's a significant other, whether it's an employee, a friend, you're always going to have that risk that the person could leave. And there's a greater risk with somebody who does not have as much dependence as you have with parent-child relationships. And so what I see a lot of people do is they try to create that through emotional manipulation of their employees, right? Oh, I pay you bonuses, so therefore you should stay with me. Or, oh, I let you come and go as you please. I don't require FaceTime, so you should stay with me. And what they're really doing is they're trying to give that carrot and stick relationship of, it's a quid pro quo, but I am giving you from the love place, not from this is what a employer relationship should be. Right. To ultimately optimize the performance of an employee. And so there's an emotional detachment that we can't have with our teams if we're trying to be the same person as we are with our children as we would like to be in our workplaces.
Right. That makes so much sense. Yeah. And it is a fascinating dynamic, I think, this whole role of caring personally and challenging directly, and really being able to get those together and get aligned with that. And it's been something I've really been working on since I worked with you, is to really be able to do that. And I have found that by challenging directly more readily and, across the board, it's allowed us to weed out some people in our firm that really were not up to par or not aligned with our core values in such a way that, I was needing to do more of that parenting, in quotes, that, now I find that it is a much more arm's length, though there is the caring personally part. And so it's a dynamic, because you know what I mean? I am definitely a extroverted kind of feeling, intuitive type. And so I do have a good rapport with my team, but it's different now. I have this more radical candor around trying to hold them accountable, managing them, leading them, but not solving, trying to help them get to where they need to be. And I mean, I think of it, and I don't know if you've ever done like the Clifton Strength Finders or something like that, something I have really found interesting. Well, my biggest, my number one strength is a maximizer. So I'm one of those people that kind of loves to see the good and what can people do. And, and so for my team, I think it's really beneficial, but I have to then put on that challenge directly. I can't be always maximizing, because that's not my role. Whereas as a parent, I find that maximizing role is kind of awesome,
right.
Because I'm able to see potential in my children that they don't even see, you know what I mean? And I'm able to help lead them to see that potential, not necessarily, get them to act on it. I mean, maybe that's not what they want to act on, and obviously they have to chart their own course, but just helping them to see some of that potential, I think, has been really helpful to them as they've, grown up.
Yeah. So Elise, we're talking a lot about kind of the intersectionality between your work life and your home life, your mom life and your leadership role life in your business. And that just kind of, begs the question, which is, how do all of these pieces, right? They don't, you can't ever stop being you, but you do take on different personas, different roles as you are moving in the different domains of your life. And so the three different domains, the lawyering role, the entrepreneur role, and the mother role, I would imagine that the strength that you bring from one area also overlap in another area, just as some of the development areas that you have in one area might be triggered differently in another area. So can you talk to me about, particularly for the podcast, how you're going to merge those three components, mom, lawyer, and entrepreneur? And in particular, does one make you better in the other areas, as you know, having a status of having all three of those very, very complex requirements of life?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, I don't think I don't think in terms of better or worse. So I guess that I don't, that's just not my framework. But I definitely think there are skills that a woman develops as a mom that is going to help her in her lawyer role and in her entrepreneur role. And I mean, some of those are very basic. Like we mentioned, delegating is one. I mean, delegating is actually huge. Two is prioritizing. As a mom, I mean, there are many days where you're looking at, your family life. And I mean, there's a myriad of things that need to be done. I mean, huge numbers. And you have to prioritize. I mean, so maybe the laundry is turning into, Mount Vesuvius in your laundry room. And that's just not that important if you have a child who's struggling with remote learning and they're having like real issues, with social and emotional development or some type of thing like that. So I think learning to prioritize, which I think as a lawyer, that is an extremely positive skill, because I think we lawyers are faced, and I mean, we do family law, and I know you do as well. A lot of times we're faced with a very complex inner web of problems, and not all of them are of an equal priority. And I think learning to prioritize those is important. And I think that prioritization is very important as an entrepreneur as well. I think we all can look at our businesses, and I mean, I know your business probably is smoother. Like I always assume, coaches, they have their thing down pat. I mean, there are things, I sit in leadership team meetings with my team, and we've been doing an annual meeting. And I mean, we had to like discover all the quote unquote issues. It was like 80 things long. And I was like, whoa, that's some issues we got to fix. So, but learning to prioritize those, because, something on the list might be as simple as, Elise doesn't send out agendas that are, succinct enough. I mean, all right, like, okay, maybe I can fix that, but maybe, creating an operations manual might be more important. But of course, I've done that thanks to you. So we can knock that one off the issue list.
Yeah, well, Elise, I'm going to interject here, because one thing that you said, I definitely want to disabuse you and the public of, which is, as much as I would love to claim perfection and say everyone should coach with me because I've got all my shit dialed in, the reality is I have things that are my weak spot, my weak points that I either hire around as I am working on improving those areas, or I simply deal with those areas as they find me. So, by the time I started the coaching business, I already had a multi-million-dollar law firm. And so that business ran without me. And there are things that when the coaching business like really just kind of took off, that I was like, holy shit, like when did I ever have to do these things? Like the first time I had to like figure out payroll, I had to like ask my office administrator. I was like, how did we like get people on payroll before? And she was like, don't you remember how you did that? I was like, no. And one would think that like, that's a pretty simple thing. You call ADP, we have a rep, and like, this is the process. But, after you get out of that startup phase, you have to go back to not just the memory of your startup phase in a different business, but they're very different, right? So all of the weaknesses, all of the trigger points, all the places where I was not strong before, I didn't magically fix them through the process of coaching, even though I've worked with coaches and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaching, because I fundamentally believe in its effect and its power to evolve my life. Absolutely. I didn't like poof become a new person. I became a person with skills and strategies available to me so that when I encounter myself, I can immediately redirect my thoughts, change my actions, and start to make progress a lot faster. So it's not like it's not like you figure it out. Like, I will tell you, there are definitely times where things are not smooth. Like the fact that my wonderful new team member Jason, who is a part of our sales and marketing team, he sent me an email in the middle of the day on Monday, and I was like, "What are you doing here?" And he was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "It's Martin Luther King Day." He was like, "And?" I said, "Did you just like opt not to take the holiday?" He was like, "I didn't know this was a holiday." I was like, "Oh crap. I have a whole roster of holidays for the law firm that also apply in the coaching business, and I forgot to send it out because someone else does that for me.
Right.
Because I don't not work on holidays because I love to work. So we all have to think about who we are and draw upon the different skills that we've had. But we're all on this journey of life and living our best life in whatever way it finds ourselves. And that goes to your point about being the messy you and accepting that as you are working to improve.
I think it's just been critical for me to embrace my messy self, but realize, and I think your point is so well taken about hiring around what your weakness might be, or, maybe an area that you're just not, you're just not at your best. And that has been a life changer for me, is learning to hire around myself and really be honest with myself about where am I in my what I call my zone of genius. What do I love to do? What comes naturally? What's easy for me? And I mean, it's all those touchy feely. I love talking to people. I love helping people solve complex problems, all that just down and dirty, getting in like high conflict situations. I love all that. But I'm no good at like setting up technological efficiencies. How do we build out this thing to make sure we're tracking this metric, and is the Zapier working? I mean, I even went to the Zapathon. I mean, that is how committed I am to Maximum Lawyer. I went to the Zapathon with Jim and Tyson, and I learned to make one zap in 2 days. And it was simply a zap that said, "Here's your invoice."
Well, that is a very important zap. If you're gonna choose anyone, choose the one that's tied to our economic well-being.
That's what I thought. I was like, we're just going straight for what matters, and we need to get paid. So that is the zap. I mean, and now I have these people on my team, and I'm like, well, can we make this, talk to this, and do this? And they're like, we got you, Elise. And next thing you know, we've got all these zaps happening, and things are just flowing. And I'm like, how did I get that automatically? They're like, it's your zap. And I'm just like tickled pink, but I can't do it,
Right. But that's why you hire people that are in their zone of genius doing the things that you are not necessarily the best at.
And it's been game changing to really, get down and dirty with what I'm not good at and figure that out. And then, I did a little exercise and figured out like, where on the quadrant am I my strongest and where am I not? And all the knots, I don't do any of those anymore. Zero. And when I find myself like doing something, I'm like, whoa, girl, you're back in your knots. Like,
I love that. You're back in your knots.
I'm like, that is not where you should be.
That is the perfect phrase. And I think it's not just the perfect phrase, but I think it's like the perfect the perfect motto for life, right? When are you in your knots?
Exactly. And you find yourself in your knots. Like, I find myself, yeah.
Yeah, but don't you think though that for your audience in particular, the mom, lawyer, entrepreneur, don't you think that we have been acculturated that we should be living in the knots? I listen to, and in particular in the Maximum Lawyer group, because I love to see those groups as opposed to groups that are all one gender, and just to observe the interaction and the dynamic. And you see that men and women have a lot of the same motivations. We have the same desires for a better life, the same desire for a better business, the same desire to take care of our family and to live our life fully. But there is a lot more guilt that comes with mom than that comes with dad. And even dads who in the group will periodically say, look, I can't do X because I've got my kids this weekend, or, I can't do this because, I've got to take time off on Wednesday to do such and such with my kids. They just say it. Yep. Even if they have an ambitious twinge that may go in a different direction, the choice to be with the children is not a mark against who they are being as a business owner or who they're being as a lawyer. But you see so many times when a mom has to say, you know, my child gets off of school at 2:30, I can't have a hearing until 4, period. Or my child needs me to be available first thing in the morning to get logged onto the computer for homeschooling. I can't schedule a hearing at first thing in the morning. And that has to be okay because I am a human being that has something other than this one thing that is your priority for my life. And we
Right.
can say no to things that are not important to us, but we seem to have like this, the blinders come on when we want to say no to things that, yes, my client is important. Yes, the court is important. Yes, the business invoice is important, but my child is important. And I shouldn't have to choose. I can either be a good mom or a good lawyer or a good business owner, but I can't be all of those things because of how someone else looks at what those roles mean for my life.
Well, and I think really coming to terms with that yourself and truly not looking at what other people, think. And I mean, you really, and it's so interesting how much you taught me. But I mean, the 4 agreements, like when I think about understanding what, what's about me and what is someone else's stuff, and really
Yes.
accepting the part that's about me, obviously I need to control that. And, maybe I have that mean girl in my head that I need to reframe those thoughts or reframe what's happening. But, really coming into your own and being able to stand in what's right. I mean, I had a situation the other day. I woke up at the crack of dawn. I had serious work I needed to accomplish. Of course, my recon Marine son in Japan decides to call me at 4 a.m. I haven't talked to him in a couple of weeks. I'm not going to tell him no. So I spent hours talking to my child. I don't do anything I'm supposed to do. And all kinds of people were waiting on me to accomplish what I was supposed to accomplish. And I just sent out a Slack message like, it didn't happen. I had this time with my child. I took it and I'm going to, come up with a new plan of when I'm going to accomplish this, and I'll get back to you. No
Yeah.
doubt some people were disappointed because I did drop the ball. I mean, I said I would do something, I didn't do it.
Yeah. But Elise, here's the thing. Your son is not a baby. And that's
No,
the thing that I love about this is because you're teaching people, you're teaching women, you're teaching mothers that when you set a priority for your life, you speak to your priorities. Other people don't determine your priorities. And your priorities don't matter more because you have a child who's in diapers versus a child who's across the country or across the world.
right. Yeah. I mean, to me, that's one of the joys of this trifecta role is, I mean, I probably wouldn't be great with a boss, having, being able to say like, I am going to talk to my 21-year-old recon Marine for 3 hours in the morning when I'm supposed to be doing something else. I mean, that's important to me. It's important to me to be available to my family. I mean, my family is, really one of my very highest priorities in the world. And so I think being able to actually be true to that for me matters. And so, these other things have allowed me to do what I want to do and be the mom I want to be. And I love creating and figuring out ways to combine them. Like one of the things that we did this year is we got an RV for the firm. So and it was my way of being able to see my children during the pandemic, because of issues around quarantining and flying and all that. And I've got a child going off to college. And I was like, how are we going to do that? Well, so that's been this awesome thing where I've been able to combine my needs to go see my own children and have a space for them where they can come quarantine where I am, and if they need 14 days to quarantine, they can go stay there and it's all good, but it really always thinking of how do I combine my roles. I mean, I think that that's one of the things I find it kind of fun. It's very creative to me to figure out how to combine what I do to make the life I want to lead, but realize that there's not a day that goes by that it looks perfect. I mean, there's messy, just all kinds of messy things. And kids, I mean, I know so many people know that kids don't work on a schedule. I mean, and you can have, and especially I find with teenagers, when a teenager needs you, you pretty much need to be there, because those windows are few and far between. And when a teen wants to like really sit down and talk to you and, and have that kind of intimate closeness that you have, it's important to be able to do that, and that is something that's very important to me, is to have that flexibility to do that and be available for my children when I can.
Yeah. So Elise, I love that you're talking about the idea of combining, because there are so many people that aim for what the dreaded phrase, I hate to hear it, is work-life balance. As if you're going to have on one side of the seesaw your work and on the other side of the seesaw your life, and then they're going to magically land themselves right in the middle. And I think it's the most absurd thing I've ever heard.
It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it just doesn't happen.
Exactly. Sometimes you're going to have a kid on the floor in your office, and sometimes you're going to be at the courthouse responding to a lease negotiation for your business. And sometimes you're going to be in your business and you're going to have to pick up the ball where somebody dropped it in lawyering. And that is all of the parts of the dimensions, the hats that you're wearing. And the people that choose to wear all those hats can put it together in whatever way that makes sense for them.
Absolutely. And I feel like one of my superpowers is being nimble and literally being able to just juggle and be nuanced. And I can be at the hospital with a child having knee surgery on a Zoom, doing a court hearing from a hospital room. That all works. I'm there with my child. I'm, representing a client. And there's things that just happen. that you need to put together. And I find, and this is where I think me being comfortable, I sometimes joke, like I'm a hot mess, but it's true. But I also joke that, I'm so comfortable just being my blonde self. And I mean that in a very loving blonde way. Like I can so easily just pick up the phone and call a court and be like, my ex-husband just had a heart attack. Like I need to bring my child to the hospital. I know we have a hearing. I'm perfectly willing to do it from the hospital waiting room, but I need to do this. And I've never had a court just be like, no, Elise, like,
Okay, so let's pause break there, because I definitely have been the lawyer and have known the lawyers that will have a court say no. And and so that's the other part of this that I think is so important, which is you set your boundaries, but the fact that you set a boundary doesn't mean that everybody's going to instantaneously get on your program and accept your boundaries. Right.
Gosh, would that be nice?
It would be. It would be so nice, but it doesn't happen. And I think that where a lot of times we miss the mark, and I say we, I'm really talking about anyone that is in the space of advising people about how to create the life that they desire, is the idea that as soon as you master yourself, poof, the world lines up and is, on your oyster. And it doesn't happen that way. And so part of the reason why I think it matters so much to work on pleasing yourself, to work on eradicating all the emotional triggers that have you excessively please other people, that have you spend money in a way that prioritizes other people, that have you create systems and structure that satisfy other people and not you, is the fact that people are not going to be happy no matter what the F you do. So you might as well do what pleases you.
Exactly. And it's so true. I actually find the opposite of, once you kind of start working on yourself and get your better boundaries, actually people will start throwing more crap at you. Do you know?
Yes.
I feel like
yes, because they're used to the old you, right?
Yes. And they're pushing. And I think of them like teenagers, I have to say, but they're always trying to find the holes in your fence. Yeah. And, and they look and they push and they get mad because they're like, what happened to you? Why are you doing this? Or, and I have found that it's been, and even with the court, being able to say, sorry, can't do it. And I'm like, okay, what are you going to do? Are you going to throw me in jail? I'm standing in my ex-husband's hospital room to bring my 16-year-old to see his dad when he had a heart attack. in my mind, go for that. What a great marketing that would be for my firm as I get thrown into jail, being a decent co-parent. I'm like, go for it.
Right. Right. And you see the positive side of it, but
Bring it
you
on.
also, the thing of it is that, of course, with courts and adversaries and clients, it's a little bit different, but the principle remains the same that lawyers don't want to see, which is when you step into being a better version of yourself, there will be people that protest, but if you stay that person, they will either get in line with your program or they will fall away.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing of it is, then you start to attract more of the people that are aligned with you, which means more of who you are, right? So when I become a better person, I attract better people.
Absolutely.
When I become a nicer person, I attract nicer people. When I become a more emotionally well-rounded person who's not engaged with people at a state of manipulation, those are the people that I attract. And so I have less of that resistance and less of that internal flight and fury that goes on, where I'm feeling like I'm constantly pushed and pulled by people who don't respect my boundaries.
Right. I mean, boundaries are just so critical, and talk about in all these roles. I mean, how important boundaries are as a mom, as a lawyer, and as an entrepreneur. And I mean, getting people comfortable and strong in those boundaries. I mean, we could talk for days about parenting boundaries. I mean, I talk with so many people, and the things that, people are dealing with about, they're like, well, my child makes me cook, these 3 meals a night. And I'm like, no, they don't. I'm like, there's a one meal. I mean, I'm definitely a one meal cook kind of girl. I don't cook at all now, but when I did cook, I mean, I was a one meal girl.
You eat what's in the kitchen or you don't eat.
I mean, you eat what I cook, or you figure it out. You clean it yourself. You cook it, whatever. I mean, I'm not going to say you can't go make yourself a sandwich. I mean, if what I cooked was shitty, all right, what I cooked was shitty. Like, I never said I was the gourmet cook, and and feel free to go fix yourself something, but I don't want to hear any attitude about it. I mean, because in my mind, I did a really nice thing to step away from whatever I'm doing to go into the kitchen and cook a meal for the family. And if you ask me, that deserves a thanks, Mom. And,
Yeah. So Elise, you and I, of course, could be here forever because I adore you so, and you always have such a colorful but lighthearted spin on what are very weighty topics for a lot of people. So I want to ask you, what is the one episode that you must have your ears upon and your thoughts upon and your heart upon if you are listening to the the Maximum Mom podcast? What is the one?
Well, I would say it was about the mean girl in your head. I mean, I think that, really us eradicating that mean girl in our head is, I mean, I think it can revolutionize our lives if we are able to eavesdrop enough on that mean girl and test her. And, because I think so much of us, we think it's true. We hear this mean voice in our head and we kind of subconsciously think whatever's being said in our head is true. And I mean, I've really learned to eavesdrop on my thoughts and really ask myself, like, is that actually true? And then, I mean, and most of the time it's not. And so learning to, I think, challenge yourself and really understand what damage we do to ourselves inside our own heads.
Yeah, that self-abuse that a lot of us have to break the habit of. And since you talked about the 4 agreements, I just want to let everybody know, for those of you that are not familiar with that book, it is a book by Don Miguel Ruiz. And continuing in that same line of thought there, he also has a book, The Voice of Knowledge, which is about the separation of the spirit self, i.e. who I am, versus the mean girl, that voice that I learned from all the detractors of the world that will be telling me, no, you can't, you're not good enough, all of that. Those are not the same voice in your head. And knowing the voice of knowledge, which is the voice of truth inside yourself, is one of the ways to set yourself free. So,
it truly is.
So as we tail this down, Elise, I definitely want people to listen to the Maximum Mom podcast. So you've got to let us know where they can find the podcast. And if they want to connect with you, where can they find you so they can get more of this wonderful advice and guidance that you're offering?
Well, the Maximum Mom podcast, they can watch it live. We do a live one It'd be nice if I knew when it was. I think it's every Monday at 10 o'clock Pacific time. So that's noon Central time and 1 o'clock Eastern time. And that's in the Maximum Lawyer Facebook group. And then, it's on all the podcast like Apple Podcast or iTunes or, Spotify. I mean, one of my son's friends texted me to say he listened to it on Spotify, and he was like, "You're kind of rad, Miss Bowie." I was like, that's pretty funny. But
you are beyond rad. You're the rattiest.
The hot mess rad one. And then, people can find me, I have a website. We have a law firm in Seattle, a family law firm, Elise Buie Family Law. And so you can find me there, and, and people can reach out if they want to email me. But I would say one of the things people, when they're thinking about all these things, I think like we talked about, coaching is such an important thing. And so I encourage people to reach back out to you, because what we can do to help so many people in this trifecta of roles, so much of it is the mindset work and the crushing the chaos. Learning how to combine those two things really allows you to live the life that, so many people only dream of. And and it's really possible.
It's not just possible, it's probable, if it's something that you set your intentions on. So I want to thank our special guest, Elise Buie. Elise, it has been such a pleasure as always. Every time we get together, I feel like, there's just like a part of my heart that like opens up, because you're always such a warm presence and always such a brilliant mind, and you share such great insights with people. So I know that everyone that listens to the Crushing Chaos with Law Firm Mentor podcast is also going to check out the Maximum Mom podcast. And Elise showed you and told you rather how to get a hold of her. We are going to make sure that that information is in the show notes. I am Allison Williams, your Law Firm Mentor, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Crushing Chaos with Law Firm Mentor podcast. To learn more about today's guest and take advantage of the resources mentioned, check out our show notes. And if you own a solo or small law firm and are looking for guidance, advice, or simply support on your journey to create a law firm that runs without you, join us in the Law Firm Mentor Movement free Facebook group. There, you can access our free trainings on improving collections in law firms, meeting billable hours, and join the movement of thousands of law firm owners across the country who want to crush chaos in their law firms and make more money. I'm Allison Williams, your Law Firm Mentor. Have a great day.